Welcome, Leola, to the show. Welcome back, I should say, because you're here for round two. And I'm so excited to get to be here in person with you in Austin and get to meet you. There's something about real life connection that makes a big difference when we can look into each other's eyes and feel each other's energy. So I'm really grateful to be here with you.
Yeah, it's so nice to connect in person. Thank you so much for having me and welcome to Austin.
Yeah, thank you so much. And since the last time we recorded, so much has happened. And I feel like that's just the name of the game when you're in the world of personal development and growth and tantra and intimacy. It's just we're always evolving and becoming new versions of ourselves. And we're recording this in January. So it's kind of fresh start of the year. And since we last connected, you wrote a book and you released it in the world. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about what that's been like for you stepping into being an author. And you've been through a big evolution this last year. So anything you want to share of what's alive for you?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's been such a big year. And when you were reflecting your experience that, wow, a lot has happened in the last year. And it's so funny this year, my husband and I decided no major life events this year. No book releases, no weddings, no buying houses. We've got all the things that we need. Let's just have a chill year. The last few years have been so big and exciting. And the book launch was definitely a highlight. Like I would say in the past year, I've had the best days of my life, the best celebrations of my life. But the book was especially a big one. I don't know if you felt this, but when I released my book, it was this goal that I've been working for and had envisioned for my whole life in a way. And then I had this curiosity of, am I done? Did I do my dharma and now I can just chill? And no, I talked to God and that wasn't the verdict. I've got more to do, but it was definitely a big accomplishment. And I'm really happy to have it out in the world and being so well received and enjoyed. And yeah, someone posted today on Instagram, they shared, this should be required reading for everyone. And that's one of my favorite compliments.
Yeah, yeah, and let's talk about the book because it really is a beautiful encapsulation of your body of work and lots of your personal stories and also really practical wisdom that we need to learn. And so it's called Sacred Sex Ed, and for people who are new or want to learn what is sacred sex, let's just start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book Sacred Sex Ed is the sex education that none of us had that we all desperately need. It's a sex education that is honest, empowering, and pleasure-based. And part of the intention of writing the book is to empower people to find sacred sex more accessible. Because when I started learning about tantra and shamanic sexuality, which are two lineages that in many ways encapsulate sacred sex, I found these lineages to be a bit esoteric or even prescriptive in nature. And the reality is that we all have access to sacred sex within us. And it can actually be different from one person to the next. And a lot of the journey in getting to have a more sacred relationship to our sexuality actually involves releasing the conditioning, releasing the early experiences of sexuality that have been traumatic to us, releasing our inherently traumatizing sexual education. So that's the whole first part of the book. And the rest of the book is really exploring this relationship between the spiritual world and the physical world, and that portal that we all go through to get here that involves two people having sex. And for so many of us, this topic of sex and sexuality is taboo and challenging. And in reality, it's just where so much of our power is. So a lot of this journey is about reclaiming the most powerful energy in the world, the energy that created each and every one of us and every animal and plant on the planet. All of it was created by some sort of, procreative sexual exchange. So it's a journey of reclaiming that energy and seeing what's possible when you heal your relationship to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm hearing it's first the unlearning and de-shaming of the way that we've learned how to relate to our sexuality, which I can totally relate to personally growing up in a more traditional Jewish home. Like it was more so something that we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
Like it was this silent shame. And then there were ways that it would come up where it was like embarrassing or where it was like I shouldn't wear certain clothes. Or, I mean, I went to a Jewish high school where like we had a dress code and like you had to like, if your skirt was like too short, like it had to be like, if you're standing up, like past your fingers,
Same.
you know? And then there were just like small ways, even in my family. And I know that they wanted the best for me. And also just like, I would come home and even like when I was in a relationship and just any time that I was sexually active with a partner. And then if I would go home afterwards, I would feel like all this, like, oh my God, I did something wrong. Like they're going to find out and have all these feelings inside. And, you know, I think that what you teach about, you know, bringing the spirituality and the sexual world together, that it can be both and that it's not that sex is bad or wrong. And when we can overcome that and break free from that, we can actually enjoy more pleasure, not just in our bodies and in our relationships, but also in all aspects of our life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing, you know, the vulnerable backstory for you. And I think that it's a very common narrative that we have, that we learn about sexuality by exploring our bodies, and it's usually in the dark, behind closed doors, being as quiet as possible, hiding the evidence, you know, and we don't realize that we're very often carrying that same shame and conditioning, even in little ways, into our current relationships, into our current relationship to our body. And it's my belief that the reason why society, why religion, why the government have created this narrative around sexuality, why they've created this fear-based narrative, is because it's such a powerful energy. It's so powerful. And when we're empowered and in touch with this energy, we become harder to control in ways. And so this is a journey of, you know, reclaiming that power and recognizing that our sexuality is actually a neutral energy, very similar to money. You know, money can be created to fund war, but it can also be created to save people when they're a natural disaster. It can be created to it can be channeled to create more love and abundance, but it can also be created to separate and to create harm. And the same is true for sexuality. Sexuality can be channeled to connect to God and to divine union, and it can also be used in ways that are really damaging and scary. And the way to create safety around this very powerful energy isn't by ignoring it. It isn't by shutting it down. It's actually by mastering this energy, by really beginning to understand how this energy moves within us and how to channel it from a place of integrity.
Yeah, when these things live in the shadows, they have so much more power and control. But when we reclaim them and when we take ownership and we have empowerment and we feel confident in knowing how to use this energy in a way that best serves us and best serves our relationship in the world, like that changes everything. And I know I've seen recently you've been really speaking into like combining the worlds of pleasure and business, pleasure and money. And I'd love for you to speak into that, especially when it comes to the realm of masculine and feminine energy, because as you and I both know, running a business, growing a business, like it requires masculine energy. We're not going to pretend that it doesn't, right? But there is a way where we can infuse more pleasure and where we can really stay connected to our sensuality and to our essence as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey of what that's been like to find that dance, and then also this intersection of pleasure and abundance that you've been speaking into.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with freedom, I would say, like freedom of all kinds.
Me too. Yeah.
And you know, my business is one vehicle that I've used to create a life that has more liberation and space for expression. And my business has created more space for my feminine to flow, actually, more than ever before, and to experience more of my oracle and my creativity. So I'm very passionate about this topic. And I even like to think of it as like, what if your business was your lover, like your soulmate? And I think a lot of us, I mean, for me, my journey, as you had asked, I'd always kind of been entrepreneurial, but about 6 years ago, I decided to start this business, which is around, excuse me, tantra and shamanic sexuality. And I remember when I first started this business, I thought like it would just be great to not be stressed about money anymore, to have like an extra source of income that I'm actually enjoying. And it's so interesting. My experience is when you do what you love, the rest follows. When you're really passionate about what you do and you really believe in the transformation because you've lived it, it becomes magnetic. It becomes intoxicating. It becomes so easeful. And your business is also such a, I think that like our closest relationships are biggest opportunities for growth in this lifetime. Like my marriage has taught me more than any life coach I've ever had. And I feel similarly about my business. Like my business has taught me so much more than I ever would have imagined about myself, about my purpose, about the universe, about God. And I think that it's very common for a lot of us as entrepreneurs. We go into this space, we're not really sure what we're doing. We're not really sure why we're doing it. We have an anxious attachment to our business and we're like, it's validating my worth. Like if I don't sign this client or I don't get this many views or likes or whatever, it means this about me. Instead of treating this like a relationship, like this isn't about you as much as it's about a divine purpose message that wants to come through you, in the same way that a marriage does that for the world. I kind of just went on a little tangent there, but
yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm right there with you. Yeah. And I think as within relationship, it's like, are we operating from soul or are we operating from ego? And our ego is really sneaky. And what a great opportunity to see in our business where our attachments, where our wounding, where, things are popping up that we still get to look at. And I've similarly learned so much about myself. And I think even for this era that we're living in is really one of the first times where women have their own businesses and are making money, where they can support their lifestyles and where they can have the freedom to then honor their menstrual cycles if they need to take time off, or listen to their bodies when they need to rest. And even if you are making a lot of money, you still need to be in the practice of honoring, like taking care of your body and of coming back to making sure that your creative life force energy is aligned. And there's so many different aspects behind the scenes of what it takes to create not only a successful business, but also one that feels aligned and enlivening and inspiring, and where we get to do cool things like travel and meet amazing people. Like it's quite a journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. So many of us go into creating the business with the desire for freedom, for more pleasure, for more joy in their life. And there can be a journey where it actually becomes more of a cage, whether that's like, I think that pretty much all of the time it's self-imposed in one way or another, thinking that we need to do things a certain way, when in reality there can be an alternative path. And really reconnecting to, why did I start this? Like there's just so many ways to operate in business that allow for the pleasure to run through.
Yeah. Something that I've been implementing and that I'm working into this year is really coming back into the role of CEO and visionary, which is really where a lot of us start before we even start working with clients. Is like, okay, this is my vision for the world. This is why I want to do this. Like my life changed so much and now I want to share this with others. And then as you start working with clients, you get into client work and then you get into the business stuff. And sometimes we can be disconnected from that visionary space. So
true.
I feel like bringing it into, like, I've started to create visionary dates with myself, like CEO dates, right? And you can go to like a really cool restaurant or go to like a nice hotel and be in the energy. And I know that you have lots of practices around infusing pleasure into manifestation. So I'd love to go there next if you want to share some of your favorite practices for bringing in that essence of pleasure and magic and manifestation.
Yeah, I have one practice that's like screaming to come through. It requires almost like a precursor practice to understand it, which is sex magic. Did we talk about that last time?
I don't think we talked about it. Let's talk about it.
Okay, yeah. So sex magic is based on the law of attraction, which basically states that the more we revel in pleasure, joy, gratitude, higher vibrational frequencies, the more we attract similar experiences, people, and opportunities to our lives. And the inverse is true as well. When we revel in entitlement or fear or anxiety or any lower vibrational frequency, the more we attract experiences of a similar frequency. And that's not to say that you shouldn't feel like the hard things, like absolutely feel them, express them. But the idea is, how can you alchemize those hard feelings? How can you move through them so that you can find your way back into high vibration? The way that I like to kind of sum up sex magic in a sentence is, I will never underestimate the power of getting clear on my deepest desires and masturbating or having sex about it. And to me, that's just like such a power, like it's such an empowering statement to say, like, this is all within me. But the idea is that, you know, when do you feel the most in pleasure, the most connected to something outside of yourself, the most like, just like good in your body? For me, it's at the brink of orgasm. And it's the same for a lot of people. And I'll also just kind of put this here too. I didn't always feel that way. I used to have a lot of shame after I orgasmed, especially if I was watching porn or using a vibrator or whatever. And it took a lot of the unlearning that I spoke about earlier to get to a place where I feel really clear and connected to my divinity in these moments. But the idea is that you pair that pleasure, that high frequency, with the visualization and the five senses reality of something you desire, whether it be something really material like your dream house or your dream partner or your dream car, or if it's like more of an energetic principle that you want to feel, like more peace or liberation or ease or abundance or whatever it is. So that's been a big practice of mine for many years. The one that wants to come through is based on this, but I started to get to this place where I was like, gosh, like, got the things, like I have all the things that I want right now. And especially related to my business, this practice became really powerful shortly after I released my book. Because as I had mentioned, I released the book and I thought, okay, that was a big thing and now it's done. What next? Like, what do I do next? And I was struggling to connect to the next thing.
I've so been there before.
Yeah. And so I did a self-pleasure practice, and instead of going into it with this is what I want to manifest via sex magic, I went in like, this is a masturbation meditation where I'm connecting to God, goddess, source, and asking for guidance, asking for support, asking for a visualization that might support me in deciding my next move in life, in expression of my purpose, my passion, and in business. And so I went in, and at first I was like, okay, is it a new client for this? Is it this much for this? Whatever. And I started seeing myself like on TV and on stages. And I was like, oh, it's the next thing that Spirit wants is for me to be in front of more people and to be bringing my message to a bigger range of people as well. And so that was really powerful. And just to reiterate, the practice is basically, instead of going in with something you want, going in and asking and being open and curious about what source wants to move through you.
Yeah, so powerful. And I think that we get different answers when we're willing to listen and be open, being like, where am I being guided to? Yeah, like, use me as a vessel, like show me where to go, show me what's next. And I love this prayer from Course in Miracles where it's like, God, spirit, source, like, show me where to go, like, where do you want me to go? Who do you want me to talk to? What do you want me to say?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like inquiring, just staying open. And what I've been really playing with my manifestation practice lately, which I think it's evolved over time, and it kind of feels similar to where you're at, is like, I used to want to manifest these specific things, and I have an incredible relationship. We own a beautiful house. We have, so many beautiful things happening. And it was similar, as like, okay, what is that next thing? And what I've come to is like, the more that I can be in alignment and feel good, like be in that state of pleasure, be in that state of joy, be in that state of connection to myself, then that is the energy that opens up opportunities, right? And like there's different types of manifestors, specific, non-specific, and you can go into detail like this is the exact amount of money that I want to make. For me, it doesn't normally work like that. It's like when I'm in my highest frequency, when I'm doing my practices, when I'm in my body, when I'm feeling good, new ideas come to me or new opportunities come to me. And then I follow that breadcrumb and I follow that breadcrumb. And it's like the manifestation is really, the practice is staying open to where you're guided. And I feel like it's there's a lot of curiosity in that for me this year of like, okay, what is this? What's going to come my way? Like what is next? And it's exciting to be in that place.
Yeah, it's a very common tantra principle to be more in the intention rather than the goal. Like let it be about who you are being and less about what you are doing. And for me, that was especially challenging when it came to, I mean, really every area of my life, but especially my work. This like concept of surrender, like it's the practice that I shared with you. Sometimes I call it God is my Dom practice. Like God is my Dom. I'm releasing the power. I'm surrendering to God. What does He want me to do? And it's like an edgy way to look at it, but to me, it's like that makes it even more enticing, especially because of my journey with surrender. I used to feel the concept of surrender to God as this like I'm letting go of some of my power. I'm relinquishing my power. When in reality, via tantra and shamanic sexuality, I found surrender is actually a way to explore more of my power by letting someone hold my connection to time and space and like my body even. It's allowed me to go inward and explore more within myself. So there's a researcher, Eva Krakow, I think is her name, and she works at like I think it's the University of Leicester in London, not totally sure, but she says that we make over 30,000 decisions a day. And so what happens when we like release the need to make decisions, there's this energy called subspace, and it's like deeply relaxing and pleasurable. And that can be accessed in your relationship. It can be accessed in your business. So it is a way of actually finding more of yourself.
Yeah, surrender has been such a process. I have a tattoo that says surrender on it because it's just this ongoing like journey of, okay, there's a greater plan for me. Like I might think I know what I want, but it's like, okay, where am I being guided, and can I let go of what's not meant for me or what's no longer in alignment to open to what is meant to me? And as you know, that journey is huge. And I know you talk a lot about the duality of the tantric journey of like, yes, it is the pleasure, and it's also that like deep raw emotion and the going into the depths and the shadow and the darkness to and that's to me like the fullness of life. So is there anything that you want to share about that duality piece?
Yeah, I think that that's such a good piece to bring in here too, because it's not to say that once you have these tools, whether they be any modality that you align with, for me it's tantra, but it's not that once you have these tools, suddenly your imposter syndrome goes away and every day is perfect. And it's no, there's still hard days, there's still death, there's still loss, there's still grief, there's still natural disaster. But I know that no matter what happens externally or even internally as a process, I know my way back to being turned on by life, using the tools that I've gained in the process, which is incredibly empowering and liberating to know I can sit in this as long as I want to sit in it. And when I'm ready, I can also move myself through it, alchemize it, come out the other side, and find a lesson in it. And that's been a lot of my last year and really my whole life. But I think that that's like, those are the initiations too. Like on the other side of all of this, how can I see that this last year made me an even better priestess and more connected to my pleasure on the other side?
Yeah, amazing. And that is exactly where I wanted to go next. This conversation about being a pleasure priestess, which is really the essence of what you embody and what you're here to teach. So for the women who are listening, who are like, I really want to live a more pleasure-filled life. I want to feel more connected to myself and my body and to my pleasure. Like, let them in. I would love for you to share, like, how would you describe the pleasure priestess archetype?
Yeah, great question. So, to me, the pleasure priestess is in devotion to the reality that there is a spiritual world, there's a physical world, there's an energy that connects them. And how can I be in service to that mission of understanding and, in a way, seduce the world into a greater good in the way that is uniquely sourced from my own life force, my own energy, my own gifts, my own power. I teach a lot about there being, like the light feminine energy and also the dark feminine energy. And there can be a lot of fear or demonization of dark feminine. And there's just as much God and love in the dark as there is in the light. And you could even think of it as like, the baby in the womb, darkness, the seed in the soil, darkness, the caterpillar in the chrysalis, darkness. But that's like where magic is happening and transformation is happening. There's another world called shadow, which is something completely different and is where you see a little bit more of the lack of integrity or the distortions of the feminine. But to me, the pleasure priestess is really owning these dark feminine qualities, and they are, her magnetism, her seductive power that isn't trying to manipulate or gain or ruin reputation. No, she's there to like call a man forth and call herself forth and be evidence for other women in their sensual embodiment. Another part of the dark feminine is the oracle. So she is connected to God, goddess, source, as well as the, emotional range of the feminine is another aspect of the dark feminine. She who is able to alchemize those moments that are really, really challenging and see the opportunity in it and channel that to create more peace and ease in her own life and in the world. So to me, the pleasure priestess is about, can you harness those gifts, integrate the shadow, and bring in those energies of the light feminine as well, which are more nurturing and light in ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when women are coming from a more hyper masculine way of being, initially they're drawn to like, oh, I want to be softer. I want to be more open. I want to be more intuitive. I want to be more playful and I want to be more magnetic. And those are all like the light feminine, right? Yeah. Where it's like, I just want it to be ease and flow all of the time. And that's beautiful. And ultimately, we want to have more of that in our lives. And as anyone who's been through this journey of healing our sexuality and of healing our trauma, we need to go through that darkness and be able to sit with that darkness and own that darkness and not shame it and put it in a box and be like, I'm not supposed to be that way. Mm-hmm. And it is through really embracing the darkness that allows us to experience more of that light feminine. And we go through cycles. And I love what you said. It's not like, okay, once you have all these tools, then it's like you never feel grief again, or you never feel anxiety or scarcity again. It's like, no, those are all part of this experience. But the question is like, can we alchemize that? How soon can we come back? And it is so empowering knowing that no matter what's happening in the world or in our relationships, that we can come back to that place of center. And that's empowerment to me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so there's one more topic I wanted to talk about today. And I shared with you even before we started recording, I was like, ooh, I feel kind of nervous talking about this, which is because it is taboo. And I know you love talking about taboo things because that's part of how we remove the shame from things. So I wanted to talk about a couple of taboo areas when it comes to sexuality. And these are things that I know that there are women who have curiosity around, and maybe they have desire around, and they have these stories around that being bad or wrong, or dirty or whatever they might think. So a couple of the topics that I wanted to talk about, the first one, because I feel like it ties so deeply into this conversation of feminine frequency and women being connected to their bodies, is around having sex when you're on your period and like sex during different times of your cycle. And I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of having sex all the time. And what I would say is there are different superpowers of each part of the cycle. And I'm actually a big fan of men understanding the different parts of the cycle as well, so that they can also get in on the magic, basically. So, when you're ovulating, this is a really great time to try new things and maybe explore more primal dynamics. And like, this is the time to really initiate, as a man and as a woman, intimacy. Whereas during the period, during the menstrual part of the cycle, there's a deeper connection to spirit, to God, goddess. Like we're bleeding, and we have like, most women when they're on their periods, they kind of just want to hang out in bed and like lay around all day, which is essentially meditation. Like, we just want to meditate all day because the veil is thinner for us. And so this is also a time as well for men to understand that their woman is an oracle, and to even consider what kind of guidance could he receive in that time as well. And then the other parts of the cycle have other gifts too. But I think that we do get a lot of conditioning that the things that our body does are inherently gross, including bleeding. And it can actually be like, to me, these fluids that come from our pussies are sacred. They are containing the elements needed to create life. And so if we could shift the perspective from ooh, gross to this creates life, there's lots of possibility there. There's a Hopi prophecy that says that when women give their blood back to the earth, war will stop on the planet. And I'm saying this imperfectly. I'm not exactly translating it perfectly, but it's, and again, seeing like, wow, your blood is prophesized. Is that a word? It's prophesized to hold these codes of like peace, and God. And I think that's the invitation that I would have for the listeners.
Wow, I've never heard that before, and that feels super powerful and really beautiful. And I love how you just, even in a few sentences, like, just, I think that's going to unravel so much for women who have maybe shied away from exploring having sex on their period and or at different times of their cycle, like starting to really tune into, getting out of the shoulds and what you should do and what's right and what's wrong, and really tuning into like, what does my body need at this time in my cycle? And am I open to exploring and seeing how that feels, right?
Yeah.
Instead of it coming from our minds. So that's huge.
I'll add one more thing that I just remembered. A lot of women experience a softening in their period cramps when they're experiencing pleasure or orgasm. So if you're someone that has a lot of cramps, it might be something to try. Sometimes when I have cramps, I'll just put something that vibrates like on my lower belly too, and that tends to help a lot. So just throwing that out there
Love that
as an extra.
Yes. We'll take any support we can get. Yeah. Okay. The other taboo topic, and I've heard I think you have a whole, at least 1 or 2 episodes is around anal pleasure. And I feel like that's something that a lot of women shy away from exploring and or talking about if they are into that. So what is your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with this so deeply. I grew up in an environment where anal sex is a sin, and on top of it, gross, and on top of it, painful. And in this point in my life, I feel I've released all of those beliefs, and I feel that there's lots of pleasure available there's lots of godliness available there. And it's, a beautiful part of our body. And that journey was not a simple one. I had trauma around anal play. I was non-consensually penetrated there in my early 20s. And so the journey of like exploring my own ass was, it's like a whole longer story. I'm like, how do I
go to your podcast, basically?
Yeah. But I had a mentor that once said, God lives in your butt. And I think that there's a lot to be like a quite a thread to pull there. Because it is this part of our body that we all have, and it's deeply connected to our root chakra, which is connected to our sense of groundedness and safety and security. And, if you think about it, like when a dog is is stressed or scared, it'll like kind of tuck its tail, and we do the same thing. So there's lots of opportunity even for growth around our relationship to this world and our bodies and our safety in the ass. And a lot of it has to do with like the energies of surrendering and relaxing and letting go of anxiety and feeling safe and moving slow. And I'll just say that anal play doesn't need to include penetration. Like there's so many nerve endings on the outside that feel really good. My recommendation is, if this is something that interests you, to start on yourself, because you'll start to get a feel for the pacing and what feels good and what doesn't, because it is an area that is very sensitive, and a partner could go in too fast, too soon. Like when I started playing with anal play, I did it on myself, and then I did it in front of my partner. I showed him what I was doing, and then things evolved from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. I love hearing about your journey. And I think I really want to honor like your journey and how much courage it takes to be talking about these topics that for many people, not only do they not want to speak out loud, but then to be visible and to be really breaking down these stigmas is huge.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing? And I love it. And like, to me now, it's like it's not a thing at all, but it definitely wasn't always like this. And I really want to thank the listeners as well for just opening yourself up to an edgy, taboo conversation and just being curious. And I'll also say that everything that I've said here and anywhere else, if it resonates with you, amazing. If it doesn't, also great. My greatest desire is for people to just trust themselves and use the tools that they know are going to work for them. And just be curious.
Amazing. Well, I have loved everything that you brought to this conversation. And I know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. You have so many beautiful offerings and ways that you support women and that you support couples. So for our listeners who are ready to dive deeper with you, what's a great next step? What do you have coming up? Like, let's give them some more.
Yeah, give them a little tease.
Yeah.
A little tantra tease. Yeah, so I work with men, women, and couples in a variety of ways, both online and in person. I think my book, Sacred Sex Ed, is just a great way into my world to get a little bit of a better feel for my ethos. You can find it on Amazon. I'm on Instagram at Talk Tantra to Me. The links are all there as well. But yeah, some of the other favorite things in my world for women, I have a year-long mastermind called Pleasure Priestess. It's an amazing journey for women that are really interested in stepping into their full feminine power, for themselves, for their beloved, for the world. There's lots of beautiful tantra ritual and amazing guest speakers and in-person experiences. And then our retreats. I just really believe in and love our retreats, and we have space for single men, women, and couples on the retreats. And we're currently doing them here in Austin, Texas, a couple times a year.
Amazing. Well, I would love to come to one of your retreats.
That would be amazing.
I love all the different ways that people can really explore your work. So thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. And it's an inspiration to me how you show up in the world. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing.
Yeah. Thanks, love.